Hello, in this video, I'm going to provide you with an overview of trigonometry or triangle geometry basics that you need for a geometry course or physics. In this, hello, let's try again. Hello, in this video, I'm going to provide you with an overview of Hello, in this video, I'm going to provide you with an overview of trigonometry or triangle geometry that you need for a geometry or physics course. First off, our content and language objectives. The content objective is I can solve trigonometry problems involving sine, cosine, and tangent functions. Language objective is I can write about what I knew, learned, and still have questions about involving trigonometry concepts. So triangle vocabulary. There are three different sides to a triangle, three. And those three sides for a right triangle are referred to as opposite side, an adjacent side, and a hypotenuse. And so you're always going to be referring to an angle. In the bottom left corner of this triangle, you see this theta. And so these three sides are named based upon their relative location to this angle. The hypotenuse is always going to be opposite the right angle. It's the longest side of a triangle. Opposite is just the side that is not touching this angle. And then adjacent means next to. It is the side other than the hypotenuse that is touching the angle that you're referring to. So there are three different trigonometry functions we're going to talk about. The first is sine. What sine is the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. Cosine is our second function, is the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. And then our third function is tangent. Tangent is your opposite side divided by adjacent. To remember these different terms, there is a mnemonic that is SOHCAHTOA. And so SO stands for sine is equal to O, opposite, over H, hypotenuse. Ca, C-A-H, cosine is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. And then TOA, T, tangent, opposite O, A, adjacent. And so that's just a good mnemonic to remember what functions you're talking about. Setting up your calculator to solve these problems is one step that people often forget and run into troubles with. And so if you are using angles in degrees, make sure that your calculator is set up with the D button or the DRG button. Or if you need to go into your scientific calculator settings, make sure to change that from radians to degrees. Solving for angles, the way that you're going to do this, if you're solving for angle X here, first step, identify what you're given. And in this case, we're given two different sides, 5 and 15, that are circled here. Next, what I do is figure out what are these numbers? Like what sides are we talking about here? And so the 5, it is touching the angle, and it's not the hypotenuse. So that's the adjacent side. The 15 is the longest side of the triangle. It's opposite of your right triangle, 90-degree angle. And so that is your hypotenuse. And so which function are you going to use for this triangle? The function that you're going to use is cosine, because again, you're given an adjacent side and a hypotenuse. The way you'll set this up is cosine of x, cosine of your angle, is equal to 5 divided by 15. 5 divided by 15 is 1/3, or 0.333. And then what you'll do is type in your calculator cosine -1 of 0.333 to solve for your angle. And what you should come up with is 70.53 degrees. In terms of solving for sides, sometimes you'll be given an angle and you're asked to solve for an unknown side. Again, what I do is figure out these different values that are given to you, what they are. So we have an angle that we're given, 13 degrees, and then we're given a side. And it's the side that is touching the angle, that is not the hypotenuse. And so that's the adjacent side. We're solving for x. X in this case is opposite of that 13 degrees. It is not the hypotenuse, it is the opposite side. And so what do we have? We have an opposite side, we have an adjacent side, and an angle. And so what we're going to use is the tangent function, because we're ignoring the hypotenuse. So how do you go through and solve? You're going to type in tangent of 13 is equal to x divided by 24. What you want to do is isolate x. So the next step you'll do is multiply each side of this equation by 24 to get rid of it on the right-hand side. And then you end up with 24 times tangent of 13 is equal to x. When you type that into your calculator, what you'd come up with is 5.54 is x, is the length of x. You can always just look at the values you're given. You should have the smallest side that's opposite the smallest angle. And so that seems reasonable in this case. If you ever come up with a negative number, if you come up with a number that doesn't make sense, I'd always recommend going back and checking. Make sure your calculator's in degrees and you didn't slip up when you're multiplying, dividing, whatever the case might be. The last thing that we'll talk about is sometimes you're just given sides and you're asked to solve for sides. And so Pythagorean's theorem is the equation a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. And so if you're given two sides, you can solve for the side 3 that you don't know. And so again, a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared is the equation that you'll use here, where a and b are going to be the opposite or adjacent sides, and then c is going to be your hypotenuse. And so in this example, I've just labeled the 3 sides a, b, and c. It doesn't matter which one you call a or b. The only one that does matter is c. And so what you can do is when you plug in values for this equation, 12 squared are adjacent side to y, plus b squared, the adjacent side to x, or the opposite side of y, is equal to c squared, or 17 squared. So what we have when we just type those in our calculator, 144 plus b squared is equal to 289. Again, what you want to do is isolate b. And so if we subtract 144 from each side of this equation, you end up with b squared is equal to 145. Or when you take the square root of this, b is equal to 12.04. That's the end of this video summarizing trigonometry as it might be used for a geometry class or in physics. If you have any questions, please feel free to stop by during homework help hours or period 1A. Thank you very much. Have a great day.